Hello guys and girls, welcome back to another review with me, Coffee Guy. Now today I've got a bit of a rarity for you, the Panzer IIIK. This is a tank that I'd kind of wanted for quite a while. I'm a bit of a collector and I particularly like the historical tanks in the game. And the Panzer III is probably one of the most important German tanks of World War II. So needless to say, the recent 30% off sales gave me an opportunity to pick one up. So straight off the mark, is it a keeper? I'm just going to get it out there now. I do quite like this thing a bit. And it was a bit of a surprise to me, because on paper it looks awful. Its stats are worse in many areas than its tier 4, and keeping in mind that this tank comes in at tier 5, its stats are worse than its tier 4 equivalent, the Panzer IIIJ. However, as always, paper stats often only show a part of the picture. What I hope to do in this review then, as always, is to briefly cover the history of this fascinating vehicle, to show you how it looks in the garage, and finally, to show you some of my gameplay and let you make up your own minds. Now I realise that some of you might not really care that much for all of the history of the tank, or even the garage stats, and so feel free to hit the timestamp below to skip straight into the gameplay. Now historically, these tanks were the bread and butter of the German army in World War II. The Panzer III was produced in larger numbers than almost any other tank apart from the Panzer IV. And crucially, these tanks, Panzer III and IV, were both designed before the war had even started. And for comparison, the British were running around these things at the start of the war, the Matilda Is. So in this context, the principles of having a well-defined Panzer III fulfilling the role of a medium tank, and the Panzer IV coming in as a heavy tank, was actually pretty advanced for its time. Now obviously, war pushes technological developments, and it wasn't long before Germany invaded Russia, and you get to 41-42 when they start encountering things like the T-34, more advanced Allied designs like the Sherman later on in the war, and these things had sloped armour and they had bigger guns, so high caliber 75mm guns. And the big limitation of things like the Panzer III was the turret was too small to really up-arm them and get a high caliber 75mm gun in. Now this might seem like a bit of a weird mark, because this tank does actually come with a high caliber 75mm gun, and I don't think that's historically accurate. But by that point in the war, 1942, a lot of the Panzer IIIs were either decommissioned and replaced with newer Panzer IVs, or they were converted into the quite well-known Stuks, which you get in-game. Now the Panzer IIIK was a proposed command version of the Panzer III, coming in very late in its life, mid-war period, and it came with heavily reinforced armour and a heavily modified turret as well. I'm not sure that even then it was able to accommodate that high caliber 75mm gun that you get, but that's just one of the quirks of World of Tanks. But what we get in the tech tree in comparison is the more common J mark. Now, this variant, keeping note there actually, what I'm showing you here is the base version, the unupgraded one, but the figures that I'm going to quote are the things that come up when you fully upgrade it. So what you get down at tier 4 of the J is a pretty fast firing 75mm gun, 43 caliber, 10 degrees gun depression, 103mm of penetration, which isn't bad for tier 4, as 110mm is still average for tier 5, and you get about 110 damage per shot as well. Now, it comes with a fairly respectable, again for tier 4, 50mm of frontal armour, 30mm to the side, and 50mm to the back, with the turret being 30mm all round. It's a bit of a weak spot cupola, which despite being apparently 90mm, can still be penned by plenty at tier 5. Your camo's alright at 0.28. You get a massive 440 horsepower engine, which gives it a pretty good power to weight ratio at 21.5, again when fully upgraded. Pretty good turret traverse, but the view range is pretty poor at 330, which is a bit weird considering it's a medium, and I swear some of the heavies down there probably get about the same. And the benchmark for other mediums at tier 4 tends to be at least 350. So signal range eventually gets up to 710 meters, which is pretty good. It does have a pretty easy to pen ammo rack. Now moving on to the Panzer IIIK, which is the premium that this review is all about, you get exactly the same engine, but the weight's higher. That gives you a lower power to weight ratio of 19.48. Also gets exactly the same top gun. The only slight perk is it's got a slightly faster aim time of 2.3 rather than 2.5 seconds. But you also get worse hold reverse, only 38 degrees a second compared to 45 degrees in the Tier 4 Tech Tree variant. Your turret traverse is only 34 degrees a second compared to 44 degrees a second down at Tier 4 in the Tech Tree. You also have a worse radio range of 620 meters compared to 710 on a fully upgraded Tech Tree 1. Almost identical ammo configuration, but worse camo at 0.27. So far this seems like a worse tank a tier higher. However, armour-wise, you do get an extra 20 mils on the front of the turret, and this has saved me a couple of times, although 50 mils is still pretty poor at tier 5, let's be honest. You've still got that annoying cupola weak spot too, but you do get an extra 30 meters of view range, and crucially, you get hit points, like 600 of them. Now, this might not seem like much, but few tier 5s get above 500, and the Tech Tree Panzer IIIK only gets 350. So suddenly, what you can do in this tank is outspot and out damage per minute opponents, provided you pick your encounters carefully. Now, it's really crucial that you're one-on-one, you don't let yourself get surrounded. To play this out to its maximum advantage, crew-wise, I've gone for Brothers in Arms, and I'd likely go for camo and muffle shot next to help me stay out of sight that little bit longer and save that health for as long as possible. Likewise, I've gone for binoculars to boost the view range and a gun rammer to get that rate of fire up. And despite your hit points, your armour's still pretty naff, so you don't want to get too close that you aren't able to control the number of opponents you're facing. I really can't stress that enough. Those 600 hit points will go pretty quick. Unusually on this tank, you can also put on additional grousers if you want. Not many seem to come with that option, and that could be viable, I suppose, if you want to get your mobility up, because this thing is a bit sluggish with that extra weight on it. So ammo is pretty cheap. 103 pen as standard is pretty doable at tier 5. You might need some premium ammo for your heavy tanks, as your mobility is not quite good enough to get round them and flank them as easily as you can with the Panzer IIIK down at tier 4. But if you combine those ammo costs with its silver bonus of 40%, it's actually a pretty good silver earner. And you get also 40% XP boost as well. So it's a good trainer down at tier 5. So I've gone with you through the stats and my thoughts on them, and I don't blame you if you're still skeptical. I certainly was when I played my first game in this. But let's get into that gameplay. So the first battle is Panama. It's tier 5, and it's really quite a good one for this tank because you can keep your enemies at distance and utilise its gun depression on the hills. However, as you can see, there are plenty of tier 5s on this list that will easily get through my armour. Even with those 600 hit points, I'm still a 2 to 3 shot kill. So it's by no means a charge leader. He says as he charges off without any support, seemingly. Now, my rationale here is it's Panama. You seem to fare a lot better on the hills along the C3D3 line, as opposed to over in the other side on the F0 line. That does work on Westfield, but I just never find it works out for me when I spawn from the north on Panama. So I was keeping an eye on teammates, and I could see that they were slowly starting to come along with me. Just taking their time about it. But you can see that the acceleration on it is not that great when you have to hit a hill, and I don't know, it seems to me like it's quite a big trade-off for that tiny bit of extra armor you get on front of the turret. Because all of the attributes of this tank really are for kind of sneaking over ridge lines and just pottering away at people with that gun, and using your large hit point pool to soak up any odd return shots, and you're really hindered just by that lack of mobility. And so I've got up on that hill, I've used that view range and spotted quite a lot coming towards me. And we can start to see where that gun depression really comes in handy here. Just putting one after another into that M3 Lee, got my first kill. I'm a bit wary of that T50 and also the Covenanter as well. I don't really want them getting round me because that slow turret traverse, they can easily outcircle me, and that's something you've got to be wary of. But I can see that I've got support now, so I'm a bit more willing to be aggressive here. And again, you can start to see that that rapid rate of fire can really start to build up. And it just lets you wear out opponents. So I didn't really appreciate that little shift from that guy underneath me, pushing me over the hill line. I'm just letting him get in front of me. But again, you're quite a small target with that gun depression. And I was a bit cheeky here. I probably should have pulled back and not risk another shot, because his Volkwart's got the Matilda's like machine gun 2-pounder. And I took a lot more damage off of him than I really should have. But I wanted that kill. I've got my 2 kills. I'm happy. I'm going to pull back. And I'm also very lucky. I realise on this map that there's no artillery. Otherwise I probably wouldn't get away with this ridge lining so much. You can start to see there are some things, I mean this is only a Stug, that you'll bounce off of. So I readjust and try and go for the lower plate. That's the easier one to go for on Stugs. But just be aware of that. Whilst 103 pen is pretty good, it'll get you through most things. You might have to switch to premium every now and again. So, in summary, this tank is definitely a support tank. But that's no different to most of the other German Tier 5 mediums, with the notable exception of the Ram Panzer. I have a lot of fun in the Ram Panzer. Now it does have an edge over the Tech 3 Tier 4 Panzer IIIK, due to that ability to absorb more damage and to out damage from many opponents. But then other German Tier 5s, for example many of the Panzer IV variants, do get slightly better armour than this, and they also get a slightly higher caliber 75mm gun often. So overall, if you're a bit of a collector, you'll definitely have fun in this. Otherwise, it probably doesn't give you that much you wouldn't get from, say, a Tech 3 Panzer IV, or one of the other many Tier 5 premium versions of that out there. So I've got my high caliber, I got my mastery badge on that, which I was very impressed with, as well as about 40,000 silver, so it's not bad for Tier 5. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit subscribe if you did, and do keep tuned in because I've got some reviews coming up on a few more of the rarer Tier 5s, including the Hungarian Tyran 3. So catch you all soon. Coffee Guy out.